How do we build inspiring communities for kids that develop reason, compassion, and wonder? What can you do at home with your family to cultivate empathy, critical thinking, and personal growth for kids and adults? Amanda K. Metskas has inspiring stories from Camp Quest and some ideas that you can use at home and in your local communities. Amanda K. Metskas is the executive director of Camp Quest, Incorporated. In addition to her work with Camp Quest, Amanda is a board member of the Secular Coalition for America. She co-authored Raising Free Thinkers, a practical guide for parenting beyond belief, with Dale McGowan, Malene Matsumura, and Jan DeVore. Amanda holds an MA in Political Science from The Ohio State University and a BA in International Relations and Psychology from Brown University. She lives in Columbus, Ohio, with her husband August E. Brunsman IV and their 2 cats. Please join me in welcoming Amanda K. Metskas.
I sound really formal all of a sudden, my goodness. Thank you guys, I really appreciate you being here today. I know it's cold outside, so it's a bit of a kind of extra effort to mobilize and leave the house. So thank you so much. Thanks, Derek, for setting this up, and Rose for the introduction. Also, Stan and Beth, I know, have been Camp Quest volunteers before. It's been a while, but they were dedicated volunteers for many years at Camp Quest. Any of the rest of you been to camp? Okay, there's a lot of HCCO members who have been to camp as volunteers, some as campers as well. So I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss anybody, kind of recognizing the degree to which the humanist community has been a really supportive and participatory partner with Camp Quest over the years. So thank you to Stan and Beth, and thank you to everybody who is not here but is an HCCO member who makes that happen. It has been many years, but I used to be the vice president of this group, the Humanist Community of Central Ohio, and I haven't been around as much since then, but it's really great to be back and see old friends and meet new people and see new faces here at the group. It's great to see everyone doing so well, so I'm really excited about that. I guess I changed the title of my talk. It's the same content, but I kind of like this. The kids are more than all right. You know, it's not just the kids are all right. We're actually doing pretty well, guys. It's pretty great. So, getting started, the first thing I want to do is, Camp Quest is about a lot of very serious things, but Camp Quest is also a summer camp. And the most important thing for a summer camp to be about is having fun. So if your summer camp is not about having fun, you probably should do something else. I think this is actually really true for a lot of our activism, a lot of our communities. You know, if you're doing work within humanism, within other causes that you're passionate about, and you're not having any fun doing it, you're not going to stick in it for the long haul. You're going to burn out, and you're going to just be like, you know what, I just can't do this anymore. It's exhausting, right? So whatever you do for your activism, for your community, make sure you're having some fun. And so in order to assist with that today, I'm going to need everybody to stand up. I warned Jamie this is coming. Okay, so one of the things we do to have fun at camp is we sing ridiculous, silly songs. So this song is a repeat after me song.
Repeat after me.
There you go. This is a repeat after me song. All right. I said a boom, chicka boom.
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 I said a boom, chicka rocka, chicka boom.
I said a boom, chicka rocka, chicka boom.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
One more time.
One more time.
Janitor style.
Janitor style.
I said a broom, sweep a broom.
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 I said a broom, sweep a moppa, sweep a moppa, sweep a broom.
I said a broom, sweep a moppa, sweep a moppa, sweep a broom.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
One more time.
One more time.
Camp Quest style.
Camp Quest style.
Derek, can you close the door?
I said
a boom, chicka boom!
I said a boom, chicka boom!
I said a boom, chicka boom!
I said a boom, chicka boom!
I said a boom, chicka rocka, chicka boom!
I said a boom, chicka chicka, rocket chicka, boom.
All right, thank you guys.
All right, thank you guys.
All right, so I do that because it's you gotta kind of get some energy going, but also to point out, like I said, that camp is fundamentally about having fun. In addition to having fun, we're about friends and free thought, and many of you are kind of familiar with the basics of who we are and what we do. But for those who aren't, I want to give kind of a brief introduction. What we try to do at Camp Quest is build a safe, secular place where kids can belong so that they can grow. And there are 4 kind of key ways that I want to share with you today that we help kids belong and grow at Camp Quest. And some of those ways are typical summer camp things. You'd find this at just about any, 4-H camp, Boys and Girls Clubs, anything like that you'd participate in. Some of them are not typical to other summer camps. These 4 things that I want to share, they're also foundational values that I think you can use in your own life and you can use in raising your families, even if you never come to camp. I think these are things that you can kind of add as part of your personal growth repertoire. I really like what the values introduction activity we did today, because I think that ties into a lot of what Camp Quest is about. And I also really appreciated Rose's reading from Phil Zuckerman, because she was talking about how secular parents and families don't want to indoctrinate their kids into just believing what their parents believe. And at Camp Quest, we very much follow that same ethos. We don't want to indoctrinate kids into believing what their parents believe. We want kids to have a place where they can learn critical thinking skills and can learn that they're not alone. So when they have questions, when they have doubts, when there are things that they want to talk about that maybe they're told, you shouldn't be talking about religion, you shouldn't be talking about politics, they have friends that they can talk about those things with and know that there's nothing wrong with them and there's nothing wrong with their family. So these are values that we develop for our campers. These are also values that we develop for our volunteer leaders at camp. A lot of our campers age out of camp, kids grow up, it turns out, and they keep coming back as volunteer counselors. So this is something that kind of takes us through our whole organization, from the youngest 8-year-old showing up at camp who being away from home is scary and hard, and that's like a challenge to overcome, all the way up through me as executive director, our national board chair. Any role you play in this organization is a role where we're trying to help you develop leadership skills and do things you maybe didn't think you could do before. So we've set this goal by 2020. We want to have 2,000 campers. So this was in Colorado a couple years ago when we had 1,000 campers in 2014, and we said, okay, we're going to double by 2020. So that's what we're doing. It's an ambitious goal because it took us 20 years to get to 1,000 campers. We're going to spend 5 years getting to the 2,000. Okay, so the first thing of these 4 things that we really seek to inculcate at Camp Quest is empathy. When we were founded in 1996, we had 20 campers, and at that time, Edwin and Helen Kagan and some other members of the Free Inquiry group, they were noticing that there were, things for adults to do who were humanists, but there wasn't really much for kids from these families to do back at that time. And then they were also hearing stories about kids in the Boy Scouts getting told, you can't be the best kind of citizen if you don't believe in God. And so families really felt a need for a place that their kids could participate in something that wasn't telling them there was something wrong with them or something wrong with their families. So one parent in those early years said she found Camp Quest. We had kids from all over the country, and even other countries, from the Curacao Islands, of all places, flying into first Kentucky. The first 2 years we were in Kentucky, and then we moved to Ohio, flying into camp in the middle of nowhere, because this was the only thing of its kind like this. And so one parent told us, she lived in Virginia, and she said, my kids came home crying from school, and they said, are we the only family that doesn't believe in God? And she was like, whoa, I've got to do something about this. Like, I can't let my kids have this experience and not know that there are people out there like them. So those campers grew up and they came back as volunteer counselors. They came back for years as adults. And what's so cool is, one of those campers was one of my first campers when I was a counselor for the first time in 2003. And some of my other campers who were campers then are now on our national board of directors. They're now some of our paid staff. And so when we talk about camp being a place where kids grow up and develop through these experiences, it really is true. It really is happening. And having been in this organization long enough now, I've been able to watch a lot of it happen. So that chokes me up. Sorry. So what's important at camp is that we're a place where adults model empathy. That is the expectation that we set, and we create that culture where we try to be able to understand one another. We are kind to one another, and we try to understand one another. And that empathy piece, that's probably pretty common at summer camps. That's probably a pretty common cultural expectation that summer camps have and thing that they're trying to build. Because a lot of what summer camps are about is building opportunities for personal growth. And to have those personal growth experiences, you first need to feel safe. You need to feel like you belong and you feel safe so that you can push yourself outside of your comfort zone. Because you can't do that if you're just kind of freaked out that, things aren't okay. How are you going to take that next step out of your comfort zone? So that's the second thing. The second thing is challenge yourself. So summer camp is an amazing place to watch this happen. It's an amazing place where kids do things they didn't think they could do before. And some of that is just simply being away from home for a week. That's scary when you're a kid. I don't know how many of you went to summer camp? Okay, a lot of people. Do you remember being homesick? Was it hard? Yeah. No? Nathan's like, nah. I was like, oh, there's a climbing wall. So for some kids, homesickness is a real opportunity for them to challenge themselves and grow. And being away at camp, having that independent experience is very hard. For other kids, they're like, see you in a week, Mom and Dad, bye. But maybe they're standing at the foot of the climbing wall going, I don't know if I want to go up there, right? And what the culture we create at camp does is it encourages a mindset of, it's called challenge by choice. And this is pretty similar to a lot of other summer camps where it's not about you competing with the other kids who can see, to see who can get the furthest up the climbing wall or go up there the fastest or whatever. It's about you challenging yourself and you competing with yourself and the other people around you at that activity being supportive of you meeting your goals. So for some kids, it's, I'm going to get to the top of the climbing wall as fast as I can. For other kids, it's, I'm afraid of heights. I've never done anything like this before. And maybe it's just, I'm going to get to the point where both my feet are off the ground and are on the first layer of footholds and I'm holding onto the wall. So for those kids, what's important is that the culture that you create is you're not failing because you didn't go to the top of the wall like your friend did. You're succeeding because that was not something you were decided you were going to do this morning. And you came out here to the climbing wall and you did that. And your community of friends here at camp cheered you on while you did that, while you set that goal to go a little bit beyond what you thought you could do. And this is something that we see happen with a lot of things at camp, like the talent show. So sometimes you see a kid who they're really shy all week at camp, and you get to the end of camp and it's the talent show. And all of a sudden, this kid's up on stage and they have an amazing voice and they're singing and everyone's like, where did this come from? Whoa! And so these are the kinds of experiences that summer camp in general is known for, and Camp Quest is no exception. one of the things that's really cool that I've seen in our organization is seeing this happen for our counselors as well. We get volunteers who come to camp ages 18 to 80. Older than 80 is okay too. 80 is the oldest I know of who spent a full week at camp as a camp counselor, like with a cabin of kids. He did fantastic, by the way. So we get volunteers who haven't come to camp before, and some of them are like, I've never worked with kids before. I have no idea if I can do this. And it turns out that they can. You know, it's so cool to see adults stepping outside their comfort zones, developing skills that they didn't think that they had before, and then coming back year after year to camp, taking on different roles. Our regional director for Camp Quest in the Southeast region is Amy Monsky. She came to Camp Quest, Ohio in 2010 to see how camp ran because she wanted to get a camp started in South Carolina. And at that time, she was a stay-at-home mom, and she had had a career before she went to raise her kids, went home to raise her kids. And it had been a little while before she had been doing things since she'd been doing things kind of outside of that framework. And she was like, oh, okay, this is kind of a lot, right? Camp Quest, South Carolina had, I think they had almost 100 campers last summer. And Amy is working on starting a new camp in 2017 in Mississippi, serving northern Mississippi, Alabama, and West Tennessee. She's helping develop leaders who can start camps all over the Southeast region. And I don't think she knew that she could do that in 2010. So these are some things that I see Camp Quest doing that it's part of living a fulfilling life, to be able to take on challenges and meet them and grow as a person. Okay, so this is where we start to get to things that are maybe a little bit less typical summer camp fare. As I was kind of talking about at the beginning, at Camp Quest, we're building a community where kids aren't just challenging themselves with the climbing wall. They're challenging themselves with the big, deep questions of life. One of the things that I run at camp, and a lot of our other volunteers run at sessions when I'm not there as well, is Socrates Cafe. And this is a philosophy discussion activity where some of you, I think there are Socrates Cafe groups in the Columbus area on Meetup and things. This is aimed at all ages. And it's an activity where you strive to become better questioners together. So you take a question like, what is knowledge, or what is friendship, or what is normal? What is normal is a really amazing question to do with teenagers. And you set the ground rules and you say, okay, we're going to push each other to develop our ideas. We're going to, we may challenge each other pretty hard in this discussion, but we're going to treat each other with respect by attacking ideas and not people, by waiting for our turn on the speakers list, things like that. And we're not going to expect that we're all going to agree at the end of this hour-long discussion. What our goal here is that we've all come away with some perspectives that we didn't have before. And we've all learned to think about this in a little bit deeper way. So what's really cool about that is these experiences where kids, you get a couple kinds of kids at Camp Quest who I see their personalities coming out in Socrates Cafe. One is kids who are a bit like I was when I was a kid, where I wanted to talk about politics and religion and the universe and how does this thing work and how does that thing work. And my parents took that seriously, but a lot of the adults, they just kind of brush that off, right? When you're a kid, it's nice that you think about those things, whatever. They don't take you seriously. So you see kids like that at Camp Quest who are like, holy crap, the adults are actually listening to me and taking me seriously. This is amazing. And then you see other kids at Socrates Cafe who you get the sense that they are not the kids who are speaking up in class at school, because they're used to an educational environment where when the adult asks a question, the question essentially is, read my mind and tell me what the answer is that I'm thinking. And that's how you get the right answer, and that's how you get rewarded, right? And they're afraid of getting it wrong. And so they don't speak up. And you see them, after a little while of Socrates Cafe, figuring out this isn't like that. It's not that the adult facilitating the discussion knows the answer, we don't know the answer, and we're upfront about that. And so then they speak up and they share these amazing perspectives that you get the sense that they haven't had a chance to share before because they've been afraid of being wrong. And so these are the experiences at Camp Quest that I think really starts to set it apart from your typical summer camp fare. I was at Camp Quest Kansas City for their first session, I think this was 2013. And I was leading Socrates Cafe, and we do it every day during the week. And I have the kids vote on what topics they want to do. So the first day, I'll put the topic out there, but then they can just say, they can throw out topic ideas. I keep a list, and they vote. And whichever one gets the most votes we do that day, I keep the rest for later in the week. So I knew we were getting the last day of camp. The previous day we had done what is religion, and the second top vote getting topic was what is death. And I'm like, okay, we're going to the last day of camp. They're going to pick death. They're going to want to talk about death. And there's a reporter from the local NPR affiliate coming, and he's going to record this session of Socrates Cafe and interview me afterwards. And I'm like, oh, here goes. All right. So I tell the other volunteer counselors, I'm like, look, I know this is the topic they're going to pick. We need to make sure there are Kleenexes. We need to make sure that we have a few more adults just sitting in the circle as participants, able to share their perspectives, because this is going to get hard. And we did it. We did this discussion, and this girl, she's like 10, she talked about how her grandmother died, and when her grandmother died, she tried to believe in heaven. She really wanted to believe in an afterlife because she wanted to see her grandmother again. And so she was like, I'm going to decide to believe in heaven. And it didn't work. She couldn't make herself believe in it, even though she really wanted to. And it was just amazing to be able to create a space where she was able to share that with other people. And so after this discussion is over, the reporter and I are talking, and he says, that was pretty intense. Like, some people would say that, maybe you shouldn't be talking to kids that young about those kinds of topics. Like, how would you respond to that? And I said, I guess my response is, these are obviously things they're experiencing in their lives. Would you rather they not have a place to talk about it? These are questions, what is religion, and what is the universe like, and what is knowledge, and what is friendship, and what is normal? That's the one that teenagers often recommend and vote on and do, because that's a really powerful concern in their social worlds. Should I be trying to be normal? What does it mean to be normal? These kinds of questions are things that kids are engaging with. And if we don't give them a space to talk about and process and think about these things, it doesn't mean they're going to stop having to engage with them in their lives. It just means they're not going to have a place to talk about it. So that's the kind of thing that I think we do that is maybe not done at other summer camps. And sometimes it leads to these really cool moments. I really love it when the kids who are a little too cool for school, you get these teenagers who are like, they're clearly like, they're not going to admit that they're impressed by anything, because then they would have to let their guard down, right? And we had a few of those teenagers at Camp Quest Northwest a couple summers ago, and they were great kids. They were great campers. I don't mean to say anything negative about them, but they were in that kind of phase of being teenagers. And so we're sitting at campfire one night, and this counselor's like, oh, that's the space station. Space station was going by overhead. And these two kids are sitting right in front of me, and then one of them turns to the other one and says, there are people up there. It was just the coolest moment, because the kid forgot to keep his mask on. He forgot to not be impressed by anything for long enough to have that unguarded moment of awe and wonder about something that's really freaking amazing. There are people up there right now. There are people in space. That's pretty cool. Gravitational waves made me feel that way this week too. I don't know how the rest of you whoa, Einstein said this was probably a thing, but we had no way to determine if it was a thing for the longest time. And now we actually have evidence that this really weak force in the universe, if you have a big enough event happen, you can test it and you can find it and you can prove that it's there. That's so cool. Okay. So this kind of engaging wonder is a really important part of what we do at camp. And I think it's also a really important thing for us not to forget as adult humanists, freethinkers, secular people. You don't need a spiritual or religious worldview to find things out there in the world amazing. You know, I mean, the world that we live in, the modern world that we take for granted every day, you know, we turn off our alarm clock in the morning and get in our car and we drive to work on something powered by tiny controlled explosions, right? And we're just like, oh, I'm driving to work. You know, so don't forget to take that step back and recognize, like, we're awake and alive in the universe, and this is, like, really cool. Okay. So that's the third one. The last one is probably the most controversial one. And this is question authority. And I think that a lot of youth development programs do not teach kids to question authority. In fact, teach kids to respect authority and be obedient and these sorts of things. And there's a time and a place for those things. I don't mean to say that you should always be, like, rampaging crazily around. No, you shouldn't always be rampaging crazily around. But when we talk about educating children, we talk a lot about critical thinking and the importance of critical thinking. But the thing is, you can't teach people to think critically if they aren't allowed to question what they're being told. It is a necessary condition that you don't just accept the things the authorities tell you in order to think critically. Because otherwise, you know, you read something online and, well, it's in print and it's on this website and it looks legit, must be right. You need to be able to question. And as a kid, having a space where adults tell you to question, and that actually extends to, you can question me here, your camp counselor, your camp director. That is an amazing thing. In high school, I was in a policy debate team, and it was a class and also an extracurricular. And my debate coach, Ms. Scheel, on the first day of debate, she had a sign up above her chalkboard at the front of the room that said question authority. And she started with that. And I'm in 10th grade, I'm a sophomore in high school. And this is just boggling my mind. I'm like, here is this teacher, this authority figure, telling us that we should argue with her. And this had not really happened to me before, and I was like, whoa. That's the kind of thing that I think is really, really important. And so, you know, this quote on here, it's the first responsibility of every citizen to question authority. If you look online, you will find people claiming this is a Ben Franklin quote. There's no real evidence that this is a Ben Franklin quote. So I put this quote on here for two reasons. First of all, to say, it's a great quote. Citizens should be questioning authority. But also, we should be questioning the people who are telling us that Ben Franklin said this. You know, we should be looking for the evidence. So that's what we want to teach kids to do at camp. And, you know, I said that this might be controversial. I don't think this is controversial in this room. But it's controversial in the world out there at large. So this is a popular evangelical parenting author, Joyce Meyer. And she says that Satan will look for your child's weakest area and attack at that point. He will attempt to fill your child with worry, reasoning, fear, depression, and discouraging negative thoughts. She's very popular. She's not some fringe, out there, unlistened to person. She has best-selling books that are for sale at the airport bookstore. You know, I mean, that's a pretty good sign of, like, how much reach you have into the culture when an airport bookstore, which is only going to sell sort of the most mass market of things, is carrying your books. And she is arguing that reasoning, that critical thinking, that questioning are things that we need to root out of children, and that they are paths that lead to depression and Satan. I put this up here because like, I live in my bubble sometimes, where I spend a lot of my time with people who are critical thinkers and open-minded and, like, really awesome. And, like, it's easy for me to forget that, like, people like her exist and have a really big audience. And when I kind of step out of my bubble and, like, remember, I'm like, oh yeah, the thing we're doing is super important, because not everybody agrees that we should be teaching kids to question. So we have to get comfortable with the notion that our children are not going to blindly obey us. And this can be a difficult notion to get comfortable with. My dad always said, if it's about safety or health, there's no compromise. If it's about anything else, we can negotiate and we can talk. And I think there were times raising me that he regretted that. Because there were times that we had an argument and he reluctantly was like, okay, fine, you can go on vacation up north with your friend, even though we just got home from being out of town. I wouldn't want to go do that, but I guess, you know, you're not tired and you want to go do that. Okay, fine. It's something that is not easy to do sometimes as a parent or a camp counselor or a teacher or an authority figure. It requires sort of being secure and giving reasons. So there may be some things that you can't negotiate about in the moment. You know, you can't negotiate about, don't run out in front of that car. You know, you just got to be like, stop, and like grab the shoulders, right? But after that moment, you can have a conversation and you can say, hey, you know, the reason that I had to stop you is that that's incredibly dangerous, and this is why it's important to look both ways before you cross the street. You know, at camp, this notion of giving reasons if you expect people to do something, it's not just something we do in our programs and our activities, it's something that we do in our discipline policy. So, you know, when a kid is not listening to the lifeguard explaining the rules at the swimming pool, it's, you know, hey, if you can't listen to the safety rules at the swimming pool, you won't know how to be safe in the swimming pool, so you're going to have to sit out for a little while until you can calm down, and then you can hear the rules, and then you can go in the swimming pool. So the consequences for behavior that you don't want to see are things that are related to why is this behavior a problem, right? And are things that you take the time to actually explain. Because that's how you teach people to be adults. That's how you teach people to be self-regulating adults who will be, not that long in the future, making their own choices about how to behave and what to do. So you give reasons and you accept that sometimes you're going to get questioned, and that getting questioned is okay. And you can sort of say, well, yeah, okay, let's talk about why we're not allowed to have candy in the cabin. Do you guys want to have mice in the cabin? Do you want to have bees in the cabin? No? Okay, that might be why we don't have candy in the cabin, right? But that, you know, if somebody says, well, why do we have to do this? This is stupid. You can say, well, okay, maybe you shouldn't jump to the conclusion it's stupid, but let's talk about why we have to do this. Because if there isn't a reason that you can give, maybe we should be rethinking that requirement. Okay, so I'm going to leave this slide because I don't like her. And I'm just going to go back to this slide makes me happier. But it's, you know, the activities we do at camp, we do a lot of science experiments, critical thinking challenges, puzzles, these kinds of things. And they all come from this foundation of the culture we create at camp being that you investigate the world around you. You investigate the claims that are being made to you. You investigate how you're told things work. And there's another kind of aspect of this that I think is important. I used the word respect earlier when I was talking about Socrates Cafe and how, you know, we're going to challenge ideas but treat each other with respect. A lot of youth programs really, really focus on respect. Respect is like a core value of their programs. And that can be really good if you actually unpack it and explain it. But often what that actually looks like in practice is kids being unwilling to challenge an idea that's wrong. You know, their friend says something they disagree with, and what they've been told is, well, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. So what do? You know, your friend says, oh, I think that the moon's made of green cheese. And you're like, that's nice. You know, you need to be able to say, well, why do you think that? What makes you think that? What's the evidence? And do that in a way that doesn't equate challenging their idea with being like, well, I think you're an idiot, right? And the problem, I think, one of the core problems we have in our society today is that we aren't teaching people how to disagree with each other. So we're all off in our silos, and I'm guilty of this too. On Facebook, someone posts something dumb, and I'm like, do I want to? No. Unfollow. Right? Because I don't want to spend the time engaging with correcting this like idea that they've put out there. You know, maybe they support Donald Trump or something, and I'm like, unfollow. And the thing is, that's not going to help us solve the really serious challenges we have to solve as a culture. You know, you see the debate about gun control, you see the debate about abortion, you see the debate about economic inequality, all of these things. If we're all sitting in our silos and the only way we interact with each other is lobbing missiles between them, we are not going to build the society that we want to live in. So how do we teach something that's beyond respect, just being like, oh, well, if I disagree with you, I'm just going to not disengage? How do we teach respect being what Dale McGowan calls engaged coexistence? That, you know, I actually take a moment and take a step back and I try to interpret what you're saying as charitably as possible and put myself in your perspective and say, okay, if I had had this person's experiences and been exposed to the evidence they've been exposed to, maybe I would come to this conclusion. Why do they have this conclusion that I disagree with about, I don't know, taxes or guns or abortion, right? Instead of me being like, God, you know what's wrong with this country, right? How do we do that? And it starts with creating places where we teach children that you actually can say, hey, I don't agree with you. But that doesn't mean we can't be friends. That doesn't mean we can't talk. In fact, it means we should talk. We have all these things to talk about. So it can be tricky, it can be nuanced, it can be difficult to do on the ground, and you're not always going to get it right. You don't have to always get it right, as long as you're willing to say, you know what, when we had that conversation back there, I didn't get it right. I got too angry, and let's try that again. So these are kind of the 4 key pieces of our youth development philosophy at Camp Quest: cultivating empathy, challenging yourself, engaging wonder, and questioning authority. And I think that these are 4 pieces that we can also put into practice in our lives, you know, well beyond Camp Quest, to live in a way that we make the most of what we've got as conscious beings, right? With this window of being awake in the universe. And so that's what I want to encourage all of you to do. That's what Camp Quest wants to encourage. And those are the values that we really want to see at the center of society. You know, 50 years from now, when Camp Quest is the same level of household name as the Boy Scouts or the Girl Scouts or the YMCA, these are the values we are going to be leading with. So I hope that you will join us. I hope that you will send campers to camp. We have 2 weeks of camp in Ohio this year. One's in June, one's in July. I hope that you'll apply to volunteer at camp. The volunteer application forms are up. And volunteering at camp, I think, is almost as much fun for the adults as going to camp is for the kids. So, you know, you get to like go on the canoe trip and like do all these cool things and meet these amazing people and have these amazing conversations. It's also super exhausting and really hard work. So don't think I'm giving you the Pollyanna version here. You will be tired, but you will also have an experience that I think you will love and that you will want to come back and do again. We also really value financial support. A number of you in this room are financial supporters of Camp Quest and really, really appreciate that. We could not do what we do without your help. So thank you for that. And I hope we'll see you this summer in various ways. And even if we don't, I hope that that you'll take these things that I talked about today and you will put them into practice in your home lives, in your activism, in your jobs, whatever domains you're kind of operating in. I hope you found something in this that was useful to you, that you could use. So, yeah, that's it. Oh, these are actually, yeah, okay. These are, sometimes I use these at Q&A usually, but just to give you a sense, these are all the locations that we have around the country. This was the 2015 map. The 2016 map is a tiny bit different, but it's not important. The Ohio one is right there, and that's where you guys are. 2 weeks, one in June and one in July. And then this is our growth chart. So we started back here in 1996 with 20 kids and kind of, you know, trundled along for a while. Those last few years are our goals. In 2015, we hit our goal. We wanted to have at least 1,100 campers. We had 1,123 campers in 2015. We're on track to have more than 1,200 campers in 2016. So by 2020, I expect we will have 2,000 campers going to Camp Quest across the U.S. every summer. So yeah, that is that. Thank you guys so much, and I'm happy to take questions.